Alright, so this is my Consistency Turbo Quasar deck. The idea of this deck obviously is to make Quasar, get the pieces you need consistently, right? So, ain't too different from, any basic Quasar deck, except it has the concept of thinning out the deck so you have access to specific cards. Run through your deck relatively quick. There are some other ways you can speed up this deck or any other deck, but they usually have extreme costs, like Pot of Desires, for example. I like the card, I just don't have the money for it, right? Or I just don't want to spend the money for it. It is cheaper for me to play stuff like Magical Mallet, Reload, since I do have access to those cards. Thunder Dragon. I don't have Thunder Seahorse in real life, and they're not too expensive, but I don't have them, so I have to get some. But I do have the Tour Guide engine, one Tour Guide, one Scarm, and one Sir, which is all you need for a nice little basic rank 3 engine. What you need to make Quasar, we have 3 Plague Spreaders, 3 Boost Warriors, and 3 Jet Synchrons. You only really need to do, all you really need to have to make Quasar is Plague Spreader, Boost Warrior in your hand, plus an extra card. It could be anything, doesn't really matter what the extra card is. The extra card could be a Jet Synchron, doesn't really matter. You definitely want the Jet Synchrons in the deck, because you'll send them from the deck to the graveyard by Axial Synchron's effect. So if you so happen to have a Jet Synchron in your hand while you have Boost Warrior and Plague Spreader, when you use Plague Spreader's effect, put the Jet Synchron on top of your deck, so that way it's in your deck. Now you can send it to the graveyard. Since the top of your deck, just send it from the top of your deck straight to the graveyard, and then shuffle your deck, since you already know where a Jet Synchron is, and then increase the level of Axial Synchron so he's a 6-star. So let's explain how to make Quasar, and then we can go on with the rest of the profile. You need Plague Spreader and Boost Warrior. You normal summon Plague Spreader, you special summon Boost Warrior, because if you control a face-up tuner monster, you can special summon this card in face-up defense position. Its secondary effect, all warrior type monsters you control getting 300 attack. It's not really that important. So now you have a 2-star tuner and a 1-star non-tuner, so you can synchro into Goyo Defender. Goyo Defender has an effect that once per turn, if all monsters you control are Earth Warrior type synchro monsters, minimum 1, you can special summon 1 Goyo Defender from your extra deck. And that's the only effect we're concerned with. Its added effect doesn't matter too much. So you summon it onto the field. I usually summon it in defense mode, obviously, right? Especially if I'm going for Quasar. If I'm actually going to use this effect, attack mode is what you want, but I'm going to use it for making Quasar. So I summon it in defense, use this effect to summon another copy of Goyo Defender, then use that second copy to summon a third copy. So now I should have 3 Goyo Defenders on the field. And then, since I have the Plague Spreader in the graveyard, since it was the tuner that I used, I could put any card in my hand on top of my deck. Whatever, Jet Synchron, Twin Twister, a Thunder Dragon, whatever, right on top of my deck to bring Plague Spreader back from the graveyard. Use that Plague Spreader with one of your Goyo Defenders to make Axial Synchron, which is a generic 5-star synchro tuner. Use his Axial Synchron effect to send a Jet Synchron from your deck to the graveyard. It doesn't have to be Jet Synchron, by the way. You can use Unknown Synchron if you want. Because it just needs to be a Synchron monster in general. But I use Jet Synchron. I can special summon from the graveyard, so it has a use. But you can use Unknown Synchron if you want. It's up to you. You know what I mean? If you wanna tweak this deck up a little bit, or maybe you need more darks in this deck. Anyway, I use Jet Synchron. which will allow me to increase the level of Accel Synchron. I could decrease, but that would be pointless. I'm trying to make Quasar, right? So I increase, so Accel Synchron is a 6-star. And since I have 2 level 3 YUGIOH defenders, 3 is 6 plus 6 is 12. So I have 3 synchros, 1 is a tuner, and they all equal 12 now, and I can go right into Quasar. And he can attack twice, so 4,000 for game, right? So allow you to go for an OTK. So that's how you can make Quasar. Not much to say about these guys. I already explained how you're going to use them. In a tight pinch or some type of scenario where you need some defense, you can obviously use Jet Synchron and a Boost Warrior, and you can synchro up into exceed into it's like a magician. Another strategy you can use, which I recently came up with, is that if you're in this scenario where you have Plague Spreader and Boost Warrior, but you don't have a card in your hand, an extra card to go into Quasar, and you need some type of defense, I recommend using Plague Spreader and Boost Warrior, sync into a YUGIOH defender, use that YUGIOH defender to summon another one. You only need 2. Overlay the 2 since they're level 3s, obviously, right? And you can go into a Fortune Tune. Sorry. Fortune Tune cannot be targeted by a card effect. If it will be destroyed by battle or card effect, you get detaching material, so it is not destroyed as a battle, a result of battle or card effect. You gain 500 during each of your standby phases, and if this card goes from the field to the graveyard, you can target 2 level 3 monsters in your graveyard, shuffle them back into your deck, and then shuffle Fortune Tune back into your extra deck. So even if somebody were to, let's say, tribute Fortune Tune or I don't know, do something to send Fortune Tune from the field to the graveyard, right? Like I said, tribute for like a Gamiso or something for some reason. Maybe they're gonna do some Dark Hole comp or something. Anyway, when it goes to the graveyard, you can, of course, you target both the 2 YUGIOH defenders you use, since they're level 3s, put them back in your extra deck, and then put Fortune Tune back in your extra deck. That way you don't waste your YUGIOH defenders for later when you're trying to go for Quasar. It's just a way you can go into some type of defense, you know what I mean? It's another way of using YUGIOH defenders other than just making Quasar. There's even the scenario where another way of using YUGIOH defenders obviously is if your opponent's wide open, he has low life points, you can summon Plague Spreader, right? Boost Warrior. Or if you're in a scenario where for some reason you never got to make Quasar, but your opponent's weak enough and Plague Spreader's in your graveyard, and you got like, you got Boost Warrior, and you have another card in your hand, you could put the card from your hand on top of the deck to bring back Plague Spreader, summon Boost Warrior, sync into a YUGIOH defender in attack mode. Then use his effect to summon the other 2, to summon a copy. That one summons another copy, and you have 3 monsters with 1,000 attack each, and attack your opponent directly with that for 3,000. So that's a way you can do 3,000 in one turn with the YUGIOH defenders. And because they're in attack mode, if your opponent decides to attack them, you obviously can use their effect to increase their attack for every other, so they'll become 3,000. So whenever they get attacked, they'll become 3,000. So that's always awesome, right? But of course you can do other things. Like I said, you can exceed with them, so obviously you can a way you can do 4,000 with them, right, is overlay 2 of them to make Acid Golem, right? And then you have 1 YUGIOH defender attack, 1 Acid Golem attack for 4,000. That's another thing you can do. So you're not limited to what you can do. Obviously, there's a couple things you can do. There's some synergy in there. You can also create Break Sword, and use Break Sword by popping one of your, the only YUGIOH defender you have left. Pop something your opponent has on the side of the field, and then attack. Especially if your opponent has a monster in your way, and you want to be able to attack directly and go for game, deal some damage, you can do that. The fact that you can obviously do rank 3. We also have Downer Magician, so that's an option right there, where during your main phase 2 you can summon Downer Magician on top of one of your rank 3s, except for Acid Golem obviously. And then now you have a 2100, depending on how many materials it has, it can obviously be stronger. Piercer, and it's a spellcaster. You know, that has some relevance if you have Secret Village as a spellcaster, or any type of spellcaster support card. Anyway, moving on. Red screen. It acts like a draw engine for me. It's a defense. I can attack, my opponent can't attack, and I lose 1,000 during each of my end phases. Small price to pay. It's you know, for me it's kind of like chicken game. You know what I mean? To me it's like chicken game before chicken game was a thing, right? I was already rocking this thing for a long while, for many of years now. So it's my staple, my main floodgate. It has won me many of duels, and I have lost a couple because of it, but I'd rather lose because of it than because of my opponent. Solemn Strike. It can negate monster effect or a special summoning, an inherent special summon. So you can use it against pendulum summoning, or synchro summoning, fusion, contact fuse summon, like ABC Dragon, Ritual Beast. What was it called? Gladiator Beast. You know, they contact fuse. And then so on and so on, right? Synchro summoning, exceed summoning, obviously pretty generic stuff you can deal with. So obviously it's relatively good against that. Stuff like Judgment Dragon, BLS, so on and so on. Obviously it's a really good card against your opponent's monsters, and it's a counter trap. It'll be harder for your opponent to chain to it to try to protect their monster, you know. And it's relatively generic. You can use it almost against anything. You know, you can use it against your opponent's Quasar. You know what I mean? Maybe it starts Assault Mode or something, or Cyber Dragon Infinity or something problematic, right? Then Dark Bribe can negate any spell or trap card, but your opponent gets to draw a card if you do negate the card. So, self-explanatory, right? It's a counter trap, so it'll be hard for your opponent to chain to it, especially if you're in battle and you attack and your opponent activates something like Mirror Force, then you Dark Bribe, you know. If you have anything to respond to the Dark Bribe, you know, your attack should relatively go through. Under certain conditions, of course. Then we have goes unmatched. You can put any floodgate you prefer, you know what I mean? You can use stuff like Imperial Iron Wall, Skill Drift, Benny's Emptiness, Library of Warlords, whatever, you know, whatever you want. Or you could put, you know, spell cards that you might need. But in this case, you know, I'm using Goes Unmatched. Most decks, since they do have extra decks, this acts kind of like a Benny's Emptiness or Lose a Turn. No, not Lose a Turn. Technically, it works kind of like a wannabe Lose a Turn, but it works kind of like a Benny's Emptiness, because they can only summon monsters that have the same attributes the monsters they have. So if they have light monsters and they're trying to summon, you know, a wind monster or a dark monster or something, they can't. So that can help you avoid them being able to go into something. Or if you're going up against a deck that has mixed attributes, you know, like a pendulum deck that's mixed attributes, or you know, you're going up against windups, or any deck that uses more than one attribute, like a chaos deck, they use light. So by using this, you know, you're limiting them because they can only use light or dark, not both, right? But again, most decks have extra decks. You know, they exceed summon. Sometimes they rely on exceed summoning, and if you can slow them down and prevent them from being able to access too many generic stuff like a Sky Blaster, you know, a 101 Diamond Dire Wolf, Abyss Dweller, or something like that. You know, it's really useful. Some decks have some effects where they summon a monster and they summon another monster that has either different, that tends to have a different attribute sometimes, like Monarchs, for example. They have, you know, different attributes in that deck, so this card will be good against them. This card is good against Kaijus. For example, if you have Goes and Match on the field and you have Quasar, which is a light type, by the way, right? Your opponent can't use Gamecill and tribute Quasar because Quasar is a light, not a water. So they'll have to use like a light Kaiju in order to tribute your Quasar to try to get rid of it. You can use this, you know, with any of your monsters that are not water, right? Your opponent's Gamecill, if they use side deck Gamecills or main deck Gamecills, relatively useless. So that we can have your boss monster and not worry about it getting tributed for a Gamecill because your boss monster is not water. Unless your boss monster is water, then you're screwed, right? But if it's not water, you're relatively good. And since my boss monster is pretty much light, I'm good. For example, if you have something like Utopia the Lightning, you know what I mean? He's pretty good. He's light. Play Goes and Match, and you don't have to worry about Gamecill. I came about this because I was trying to think of how can you stop Kaijus. I want to use Master Strict, but some decks require tributing. Like if I'm playing Stardust Assault mode, I need to be able to tribute my Stardust Assault mode or my Stardust to be able to use this effect. So because of that, I can't play Master Strict. So I needed something else, you know, some way of defending my assault mode from like a Volcanic Queen or a Lava Golem, or you know, Gamecill or something, or some type of Kaiju. But without restricting myself from being able to use my monster in the first place. So that's where Goes and Match comes in. It's like, oh, there you go. Goes and Match will prevent them from tributing my monster and giving me a monster that's not, you know, the same attribute as the monster they're trying to tribute. And there you go. So that's a way of defending my boss monsters, you know, from those types of outs, as it were. Imagine having something like a Notoria Beast or a legendary 6-timer Sheehan on the field, or a Barkion. Most people, you know, be like, oh, I'll just tribute that and give you a Lava Golem or Gamecill or Volcanic Queen or even what's his name, Santa Claus, and that's how I get rid of that problematic monster, or you know, things like that. You know, you get the idea. I don't need to explain it any further. Twin Twister, generic, obviously. Discard card night, and you'll be able to target up to 2 spell trap cards on the field and destroy them. You can get rid of your own stuff if you need to, but mainly you're just going to use it against your opponent. Get rid of their floodgates, their problematic back row, you know, their Storm Strikes, their Mirror Forces, whatever, right? Anything that's getting in your way. You can disrupt pendulum scales with this. You know, you can pop the pendulum scales. So that's useful for that, obviously. Reload. Add all the cards in your hand to your deck and shuffle it, then draw the same number of cards that you added to your deck. Simple enough, right? This will help you with, you know, keeping your hands consistent, right? Because you'll look in your hand, see a couple cards you want to keep, obviously, play them, set them, whatever, and then play reload and reload whatever extra cards you have back into your deck. Now we can draw into other cards, into some better cards that you want to play. And if you reload and get some cards, and let's say you have another reload, great, play it. Reload again until you get some stuff you want to play with, especially first turn. And then now Your deck is thinner because you're playing these reloads. You're going from one reload to another reload, or a reload into Magical Mallet, or you're reloading into a Tour Guide or Scarm or Graph or whatever. Anything that will help you thin out the deck. Of course, these cards are here to help you thin out your deck. Your Thunder Seahorse, your Thunder Dragons. Pitch them, search out the extra copies, and you thin out your deck relatively fast. So the plan at this deck is from Twin Twister and up is what your deck really consists of. It's what your deck is, your main deck, right? And then this is your consistency deck, right? This is your fillers. This is what helps you get to those cards. The cards from Twin Twister all the way up to Plague Spare, which is like 24 cards. So your deck is essentially a 24 card deck instead of a 40 card deck, which is almost half, right? It's almost half your deck. Magical Mallet. Shuffle any number of cards from your hand into your deck and then draw that same number of cards. Pretty much the same thing as a reload, but you get to choose what you're putting back into your deck. The cool thing about Magical Mallet and reload, for example, is you can reload each other. You know what I mean? You could Magical Mallet a reload, or Magical Mallet a Magical Mallet. You could reload a Magical Mallet, you could reload a reload, right? It's not like trade in and cards of Constance. When you have those two cards, if those are the only two cards you have, they can't do much of anything. You can't do anything with that. Just like if you had a Twin Twister and a trade in, can't do nothing with that. But a Twin Twister and a reload, you can do something. You can reload the Twin Twister, put it back in the deck, shuffle, and draw a card. So it essentially would turn the Twin Twister into essentially somewhat of an upstart, right? So that's the good thing about these cards, is that they're almost not dead draws. That's essentially that's what it is. They're not dead draws. If you have a bad hand, reload, right? You have a Magical Mallet, whatever, right? Thunder Dragon. You pitch Thunder Dragon, you can add up to 2 Thunder Dragons from your deck to your hand. So that's something you want to do, obviously. Now thin out your deck. So once you draw 1 Thunder Dragon, discard it, grab 2. Then you have 3 less cards in your deck. And you can use the Thunder Dragons for discard fodder. You can use it for using to combo it with reload. Let's say you understand where you have a reload in your hand and you're top decking, you top deck Thunder Dragon. Discard it, add 2 from your deck to your hand. Play reload, put those 2 back in the deck, shuffle real good, because you don't want to see those Thunder Dragons back, right? Shuffle real good, draw 2 cards, and hopefully you draw your way out of your sticky situation, right? Plenty of times I've reloaded Thunder Dragon and I got to my Quasar combo and I went off with Quasar. So that has happened a lot. I have reloaded Thunder Dragon and gotten into the good stuff. Thunder Seahorse, you can discard this card, add 2 or 4 Thunder Light monsters with the same name with 600 or less attack from your deck to your hand. You can only use the effect of Thunder Seahorse once per turn. You can have special summon during the turn you activate this effect. That part sucks, right? Because it slows you down, especially if you Thunder Seahorse, then you reload, and then you have the combo. The cards you need to go into Quasar. You can't go into Quasar, but at least you got to the combo, right? Now you just gotta wait until you can actually play. There is something you can substitute if you don't want to play Thunder Seahorse. In case you want to add more power into the deck, more abilities, you can play Galaxy Soldier. It was an idea I've been thinking about since yesterday. I was like, oh, that'd be pretty good idea, pretty good substitute for Thunder Seahorse, Galaxy Soldier. Because if I have 2 Galaxy Soldiers in my hands, for example, I discard one to special summon a Galaxy Soldier. Then I add one from the deck to my hand. Right there, you know. The deck is thinner, right? But since Galaxy Soldier is a 5-star machine, if I summon the second Galaxy Soldier by discarding by discarding a Thunder Dragon, I can get 2 level 5 machines on the field, 2 Galaxy Soldiers, overlay them, and go into Nova, which lets me make Infinity, which is obviously as good as Quasar, because it has the ability to negate spells, traps, and monster effects. And, you know, it can do some other stuff, of course. So having that option, being able to add that into the deck, you know, it's a good idea, right? Why not? If you can make Infinity, make them. So that was an idea I was thinking about, trying some other decks. But in this deck, I'm just go with the basic Thunder concept. Of course, you can normal summon Thunder Seahorse. I wish Thunder Dragon was a level 4, so that way, you know, you can summon it. Of course, Tour Guy can let you get, when you normal summon, you can special summon level 3 Fiend type monster from your deck or hand. This effects are negating and can't be used for synchro materials. The main target for that is Graph. You want to have Graph with that, and then you can exceed summon into a rank 3. Let's say the rank 3 that you make. Let's say you make an Acid Golem and it gets Bottomless or Controlled or Solemn Striked. Then you can obviously get Graph's effect, and Graph can get you Scarm. And then if Scarm goes from the field to the graveyard, during the end phase, you can add a level Fiend type monster from your deck to your hand. And you can go get a Sir. But the main rank 3 you want to go into is Fortune Tune. That's the main rank 3 you want to go into. You summon Tour Guy, get Graph, go into Fortune Tune. Fortune Tune can't be targeted by card effects. If it will be destroyed by battle card effect, detach a material instead. And during each of your standby phases, you gain 500. You know, it's good to gain life, especially when you're playing stuff like Solemn Strike, Red Screen, or you're trying to avoid getting cowboyed. You know, got a cowboy, or you just want to gain life points back from the fact that you took some battle damage. So it's good to have him. Since he's a rank 3, you can obviously summon Downward Magician on top of it if you need a Downward Magician, if you need some attack power. Plus she's a Piercer. And she's a Spellcaster just in case. In case you're in a scenario where your opponent has Secret Village as Spellcaster, since she's a Spellcaster, this will help you bypass the Secret Village lock and let you play your spell cards. Obviously, Slacker Magician is also a Spellcaster, so that's another way you can bypass the spell lock. And the main spells in your deck is Twin Twister, Reload, and Magical Matter, so it's not that big of a deal if you get Secret Village locked. Because your best cards are your monsters and your traps and your extra deck. But you have other options. You have Acid Golem, nice 3000 beater. Definitely useful if your opponent has like Skill Drain on the field. It'll be a free 3000 beater, but can't argue with a 3000, right? You know, it's useful. We have the Phantom Knights of Break Sword. If you end up in a scenario where goals and matches on the field, Obviously, you can't go into Fortune Tune because Torgai is a dart. So it's the Burning Abyss. So obviously you have the Phantom Knights of Breaksword, which is a dart, which you can summon, even if Gozen Match is on the field. And then what you can do is use Breaksword's ability to destroy the Gozen Match, if you're in a good position, to pop your opponent's, pop any card your opponent has, and then obviously that gives you the ability to do other things, like for example, if you want to go into your Plague Spreader, Quasar combo, you'll be able to, because you got rid of the Gozen Match, which would have prevented you from doing so, of course. Since you have Thunder Seahorse, you obviously can go into rank 4 plays if you manage to normal summon 2 of them. You can go into Sky Blaster, detach 2 materials, target 1 face-up card and fill it, and spin it back into the player's deck. You can use on your own cards, but you can also, more likely, you're going to use on your opponent's cards, especially on cards that get effects when they're destroyed. So you can use this because this doesn't destroy, plus putting stuff back in your opponent's deck reduces their consistency, because now they have more cards in the deck instead of have less cards, so you can obviously use this to put more cards in the deck to slow them down even more. And you can obviously go into Utopia, especially if you're in a scenario where you have, like I said, if you have Gozen Match, the Thunder Seahorses, they're light, so it's normal summon both of them, right? Overlay them and make a Utopia. Since Utopia is light, then you can go into Utopia the Lightning, which is also light, and you have that nice little 2500 right there, that when it battles you can detach 2 materials from it and make it a 5000. Has the effect where your opponent can't activate cards or effects until the end of the damage step, which is good against Cosmos or monsters that have battle effects like a Utopia, right, or anything similar to that. Plus, being able to become 5000 is very useful to take down any big monsters, especially any big boss monsters. If I'm right, you should be able to use this against Stardust Assault Mode, Quasar, Cyber Dragon Infinity, so should be able to take down some pretty good boss monsters with this. I've already mentioned Slacker Magician. It has the effect that once per turn it can't be destroyed by battle, and it has 2100 defense. During either player's turn, when a card or effect is activated that targets this card, you can detach 1 material from this card and negate the activation if you do destroy that card. So it's like a baby Infinity, right? When your opponent's trying to mess with her, she defends herself. Goya Defenders, Axel Synchron, already explained how to use that. We have Armades, Keeper of Illusions. Just in case you're ever in the scenario where you have a Jet Synchron in the graveyard, you normal summon the Thunder Dragon, discard a Thunder, you normal summon the Thunder Seahorse, you discard a Thunder Dragon or any card, doesn't really matter, just to get the Jet Synchron back from the graveyard. And 1 makes 5, obviously. You can go into Keeper of Illusions, Keeper of Boundaries. And it has it's 2300 attack and has a decent effect. If this card attacks or is attacked, your opponent can't activate cards or effects until the end of the damage step. So it's like it's not that different from Utopia Lightning, just doesn't get stronger. That's the only difference. So that's just another way you can deal with stuff like a flip effect monsters, Grados, so your opponent can't steal your keeper. Also is good against stuff like Mirror Forces or any of the forces, Deep Prison, Scrap Iron Scarecrow, so forth and so forth. And then of course you got your Quasar, and if Quasar ever leaves the field, like if you don't have Gozen Match and your opponent does tribute your shooting Quasar to a Gamma Cell, you obviously can summon Shooting Star Dragon. and he's a 3300. You do have 6 tuners in the deck, so you never know. You might be able to pull off his effect and maybe be able to attack at least 3 times, right? You know, reveal 3 tuners and I'll be able to attack 3 times, which is 9,900, which is over 9,000, right? Which is enough to OTK your opponent. So you could potentially OTK with Shooting Star Dragon, even if somebody manages to beat your Quasar. Just like if somebody manages to beat your Quasar, let's quietly use the field. Yeah. Yeah, Quasar should get his effect even if it gets striked or warning. You should be able to get Shooting Star Dragon, and then you could try to go for an OTK with that. No, it doesn't matter. But the point is this is the deck profile. You could decide not to play the Golden Match, right, for example, or maybe not play the Dark Bribes, right? Take them out and to make some space, right? And you could put in Instant Fusion, for example. That will give you access to Thousand Eyes Restrict, Norden. Definitely useful to use Thousand Eyes Restrict since he's a 1-star non-tuner. So that way, summon Plague Spreader. Use Instant Fusion to bring out Thousand Eyes. If your opponent has a monster, you can use Thousand Eyes Restrict to remove the monster, whether it's face up or face down, doesn't matter. To remove the monster out your way. This effect does target. And then, since it's a 1-star, Plague Spreader is 2-star, sink into, Goyo Defender and then go off. And make Quasar. Or if you're in a scenario where all you can do is summon all 3 in attack mode, overlay 2 of them, make, acid go on them, and then attack your opponent for 4,000. Go ahead, do that, right? And that deck profile.